Howdy, folks, and welcome to another day in the Milky Way. And tonight we got a great show for you with my co-host, David Null, Hawkeye Two Feathers. Thank you for being here.
Jazz hands. Hi, everybody. Good evening, and we welcome. We are always pleased to have you come and hang out with us. We love every one of you that comes and listens, and we thank you for showing up on Tuesdays and granting us your presence. So thank you. We got two stories tonight for the show, and Robert's got stuff he wants to chat about too. So hope you'll enjoy it.
Well, yeah,
stick around.
As always, we never hope to disappoint, but we are always on the good side of things. That's for sure. We got everybody in the house. Chloe is in the house. We got Deborah L. Smith, Susie Q. Let's see. Off the hook. Aloha, Witchy Moon. Thank you so much for coming tonight. Anyway, we are going to get down to the brass tacks, and we're going to be talking about legends, myths, heroes, what made everybody tick back in the day with all these stories like you're going to be talking about tonight. That's the thing, stories. Where did they come from? Why do they tell them? So tonight I'm going to get to this book here, where I found this is the Jesuit book, which I kind of promised I was going to send to Lucky Stone, and I have not done so because I've found out that it has a lot of really cool stuff in it. So until I get it read, Lucky, you're out of it.
Lucky's got to take a back seat here.
Right. This book was printed originally in 1867, and it was this is a second or third edition in 1892. But it doesn't really matter because it's all good from way back then. It's before they tried to alter everything and be politically correct, because these books, these old ones, are not politically correct, people. That is for sure. So we're going to take
you back in their day and time.
Well, in their day and time, yeah, they didn't look at it like that. I mean, they looked at Indians and called them Indians. I think the Indians called themselves Indians at the time. What else did they call themselves?
I want to say overbred white people, but get into this thing. Oh, you have to call them Native Americans, or and there are some Native folk that are very strict around some white people. Like, you should not call us Indians. You should call us. Okay. Mm-hmm. It depends on who you're around and who you are. If I'm around other Native folk, they call themselves Indians. But if they were out on the street and some white guy or gal walked up to them and say, hey, they're Indian, or that would tick them off. So it depends on the context. But anyway, I'm sorry. I wanted to say this before you got too much further. This is our 97th show, y'all. 97. We're coming on 100. 97 shows we've done, almost in a row. I've missed a few, hospital and such, and Robert's missed one or two, but 97 shows we have presented, and I just want to thank Robert for being here all them times and allowing me. And a lot of you folks have been here for most of them shows, and I want to thank you before we get to. I'm sorry, I had this on my brain before we got started, and I wanted to get it out, but. Thank you all for being here for 97 shows. And okay, I'm done with my little segue.
Well, that's awesome. I mean, think about it. What are we going to do when we get to 100? Holy cow! We're going to have a celebration.
Yeah, I was thinking about maybe like doing a giveaway. I find something around the house that I could send somebody, and it wouldn't cost too much in postage, like a 20 box or something.
I totally understand. And see, that's the thing. It's and maybe we will. Maybe we will. I don't know. I
Have
haven't.
like a drawing or something. Pick a number from 1 to 20, and if we pick your number before, then you win whatever I send you.
Yeah, pretty much. Exactly. But I can't believe it. It's coming up to 100 shows. Jeez.
I
Well,
know.
anyway,
I'm sorry. I interrupted your flow, but I just wanted to get
no.
that out just early on. So
Yeah, Susie says, I think that we are just humans. And Columbus brought the Indian term. Yeah, well, I mean, I think it wasn't, you got to remember, it wasn't just him. There was a lot of other people that came here, and they 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 said the same thing. I mean, they didn't go, hey, that's stupid. Why are we calling him that? Let's call him this. They could have said that, went back, told everybody, hey, we met whatever, but they called them the Red Men, and it, whatever it was, it stuck. And the Indians didn't protest, apparently, so it stuck. Anyway,
well, and see, you know how the word first came, right? Because Columbus thought he was in the Indies.
Yes.
He thought he had gone around the world and was in the Indies. And that's why they still call to this day some of the islands down there the West Indies.
Right.
And so the people who lived in the Indies, meaning like India and around there, that's where he thought he had ended up. And but no, he was, in the Bahamas and down in there. And so it's like, wait a minute. So that's how the term got stuck. The people who live in the Indies were Indians.
Yes. Yeah.
That's how it got started.
But here, the funny part is that Columbus never actually set foot on the continent itself. He landed on many islands, but he never. So, like I said, it gave way to the fact that the people who came from England, the Pilgrims, them people, Sir Francis Drake, they could have said that they were somebody else. They could have named them something different. There was plenty of time to do that.
And it just stuck.
Yes.
It just stuck like a bad germ. It just stuck.
Yeah. It did, and that's just the way it is, and we just have to live with it. That's the way it goes. But anyway, we're going to start out with these myths and legends. Where did it come from? Why? And what was the perspective of these Jesuits back in the day? Now, you got to remember, this is back in the early 1800s or earlier. It says the notice of superstition ideas of the Indians would be imperfect without the reference to the traditionary tales through which the ideas are handed down from father to son. Some of these tales can be traced back to a period of the earliest intercourse with Europeans, one at least of those recorded by the first missionaries. Of course, missionaries, and occurred among the tribes of the Upper Lakes. That's where these guys were mostly. Many of them are curious combinations of beliefs, seriously entertained with strokes intended for humor, as you find out, when David tells those tales. They're about humor and idolatry, which never fails to awaken the peals of laughter in the lodge circle. Because, they would sit around at night and tell these tales. And what were they about? They were about giants and dwarfs, cannibals, spirits, beast birds, and monsters, and transformation, tricks, and sorcery. Forms, and mostly forms that staple story that they talk about. Some of the Iroquois tales embody conceptions which, however preposterous, are out of bold and striking characters, as we'll find out tonight that I'm going to be talking about. And those of the Algonquins are incredible degree of flimsy, and they're silly, and they're meaningless. So not all tribes told the greatest tales, they're saying. Now, this is their perception of the tales. Nor are there of the Dakota tribes much better. In respect to the wigwam lore, there are curious superstitions of wide prevalence. So when they had a superstition, that got put in the tales too. The tales also must not be told in the summer. I did not know that. Do not tell the tales in the summer, since at that season, when all nature is full of life and the spirits are awake, and hearing what is said to them, they may take offense. Whereas in the winter, they're asleep. They are resting, and they can't hear what you're saying about them. So you're safe. And of course, in the winter, you got a lot more time to tell the tales. Because of the snow and ice, they can't get around. If it's obvious, the Indian mind has never seriously occupied itself, and in any higher themes of thought, the beings of its beliefs are not impersonations of forces of nature, the course of humanity, destiny, or the movements of human intellect and the will and the passion. In the midst of nature, the Indian knew nothing of her laws. Its perpetual references of her phenomena to occult agencies forestalled inquiry and the precluded introduction reasoning. If the wind blew with violence, it was because the water lizard, which makes the wind, had crawled out of his pool. We've heard stories like that before. If the lighting was sharp and frequent, it was because of a young thunderbird, and they were restless in their nest. That's where the thunder comes from, you know. It was, if a blight fell upon the corn, it was because the corn spirit was angry. And if the beavers were shy and difficult to catch, it was because they had taken offense at seeing some bones of one of their own thrown to a dog. Remember, the bones were always sacred, even to the animals and to the people. Remember, they didn't cut the bones. They would boil the bones, but they never cut the bones. Don't break a bone, remember? Well, even highly developed in a few instances, I'll allude especially to the Iroquois. With respects to certain points of material concernment, the mind of the Indian, in other respects, was and is almost hopelessly stagnant, which I think is bullcrap, because I don't think so. You can't think of these things without having a great imagination. The very traits that raised him above the servile races are hostile to the kind and degree of civilization which those races so easily attain. His intractable spirit of independence and the pride which forbids him to be an intimidator reinforce but too strongly the savage legendary of the mind, and it is so hard to rouse him. No race, perhaps, ever offered greater difficulties to those laboring for its improvement. To sum up the results of the examination, the primitive Indian was a savage in his religion, as is his life. He was divided between fetish worship and the next degree of religious development, which consists in the worship of deities embodied in the human form. His conception of their attributes was such as might have been expected. His gods were no whit better than himself, even when he borrows from Christianity the idea of a supreme universal spirit. His tendency is to reduce him to a local habitation and a bodily shape, and this tendency disappears only in tribes that have been long in contact with civilized white man. The primitive Indian yielded his untutoring homage to the all-pervading and omnipotent spirit in a dream of poets. There you go.
Omnipotent.
Huh? Omnipotent. Yeah. Anyway, so that's what they thought. Huh?
It's pronounced omnipotent.
Oh, omnipotent. Oh, okay.
Omnipotent.
Omnipotent. Okay.
That means
well,
like
anyway.
the one and only, the big kahuna.
Oh, okay. Well, see, but that's the thing. They viewed that the Indian was just this simple guy who didn't know nothing. But as we know, these stories are very complicated. They are funny. They are, you got to be very imaginative. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and there in a lot of ways they didn't dream up some of this. I mean, the stories were adapted, but they came from something.
Yes, they came from something, and they had imagination. Hey, it's thundering. It's the thunderbirds are restless in their nests. I'm sure those Indians knew there wasn't some big giant thunderbird in the nest rattling around making the thunder and lightning. Just like, we know that Santa doesn't really come down the chimney at night during Christmas and deliver presents to little kids. Only cold.
Well, listen, as a Catholic, when there were bad thunderstorms, we were told that the angels were bowling up in heaven.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there were stories told. So, are there angels up there actually bowling, or are thunderbirds up there? I mean, there's stories. It depends on what religion and where you come from. Let me add something else. The anybody who talks about the savages,
yep,
has a better understanding of the world, meaning they came from across the ocean. The native folks had no concept of it was across a big lake, is all they knew. They had no concept of how big this ocean was. Okay. They'd go to the edge of the water and look, and that was it. And it wasn't until some of them actually traveled across the ocean did they bring back this idea of, you should see that son of a gun. It's huge. It takes weeks in a boat, and you think you're going to die, and then all of a sudden you're there, which was like it was back in the old days. But for the Jesuits' point of view, they had a larger concept of the world because they had sailed across the ocean. So that affected their point of view. So I wanted to kind of sort of point that out. So these folks who are talking this way, because the savages don't have any bigger understanding or whatever. It's because the savage has never been across the ocean and doesn't have this bigger concept. Okay.
Yeah.
They haven't had the experience to understand this bigger concept. Okay, I'm done.
No, I agree. They don't have, but it's like the Thunderbird thing. Susie Q says, "Oh yeah, well there's large birds like condors and such, but still, you're talking a bird so big that when the lightning flashes and the thunder shakes everything, that's a bird up there flying around, and they're pecking at each other or something. It's
right. How is it different where the Romans and the Greeks both had their own gods? One was, Atlas, and one was this guy, and their thunderbolts, and they're all sitting up there in the heavens throwing thunderbolts down. So who's to say that there can't be a couple of big birds up there?
Well, yeah, and I totally agree with that, but it still takes your imagination to think of that kind of stuff. And they thought just because you're believing it's a bird, you're simple-minded. You don't know what you're talking about. You just can't think of anything. But no, it takes a great imagination to put all these characters together. So tonight we're going to be talking about Nanabush. It's also Busho, I guess, or something like that. But we'll call him Nanabush because I can pronounce it. It's an Ojibwe trickster figure. And he's a cultural hero from the Ojibwe tribe. He's a spirit of the and Anishinaabe, and he's particular among the Ojibwe. He's also, let's see, we're gonna go back here. We're gonna put this up. Okay. So anyway, and Nanabush was created by the Creator God, and he put down on Earth here. And Nanabush teamed up with a wolf. Nanabush came down on the Earth, and the Great Spirit said, "Hey, you know, there you go. I made a place for you," and blah blah blah. So he went around and he met all the animals and told everybody who he was, but he says, "I'm lonely. I got nobody." So the Creator God teamed him up with a wolf, and he stuck with this wolf for a long time. But in the end, he says, we're just not the same. You know, wolf's great, but, you know, not quite the same. Well, eventually, there's the creation story with Nanabush. And here's what I know. Okay. So you got Nanabush, and I'm going to tell the story from my memory. We'll see how this goes. So the earth is being flooded, and Nanabush here, he gets on some logs or a tree. It could go logs or a tree trunk, and everything is covered with water. And the only things that are surviving are the birds and the things that swim in the water. And Nanabush is putting a few of these animals onto the log to save them. Right? But there's water everywhere. Here's Nanabush with the animals. Anyway, there's water everywhere. And so you got turtles and muskrats and beavers and things like that.
And that's also Turtle Island.
Yes, we're going to get to that. I think I got a better one here. We're going to go back to this one because I don't know if I got another. Oh, I got pictures down here. Oh, this is the one I want. Anyway, so Nanabush, he's got the animals on this log, and he says, we need some land. And how do we get some land? And Nanabush says, I will dive to the bottom of the lake, or the water, not the lake, but the water. I will dive down as far as I can, and I will grab some land, and I will bring it up, and from that, we will create land for everybody. Nanabush dived into the water, and he swam, and he was under there for a long time, but he come up, and he says, I can't make it to the bottom. I just can't do it. So one of the ducks come up and say, yeah, I'll try. I dive down all the time. So the duck dived down, and duck come up and says, I can't get to the bottom either. And then one of these loons or whatever the heck it is, you know, those diving birds. I don't know what they're called. But anyway, the diving birds. Loons? Really? Okay. Well, the loon says, I can dive down, and, you know, I will dive down to the water. I can dive really far. I will go down and get some dirt at the bottom. And he dived down. He was gone for a really long time. And he finally comes up and he says, I could not make it to the bottom. And the turtle says, I go to the bottom all the time. I can get to the bottom. The turtle dived down. It was gone for a really long time, but the turtle still couldn't make it to the bottom. And more animals came. The beaver, you know, came, and he tried. He couldn't make it to the bottom. Finally, they were all stuck on the log, and they're all shaking their heads. And the little the muskrat came along, and he says, I will try. I will dive to the bottom. I will get the dirt. And everybody laughed at him and said, you little muskrat, yeah, you can't get to the bottom. You're too small. You'll never make it. But the muskrat jumped in anyway, and he was gone for a really, 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 really long time. And they all waited, and he wasn't coming back. So they finally, though, somebody spotted him. And Nanabush seen him, and he went to the edge of the log and he pulled the muskrat out from the water. But muskrat had been down too long. Muskrat was dead. He didn't make it. And everybody was really sad. But in his hand, in his little muskrat hand, Nanobush opened up his little paw, and in his little paw was a little bitty bit of dirt. Just enough dirt that they needed to make land. And from there, Nanobush put the dirt on, and Turtle volunteered. He says, put the dirt on me, and I will hold up the land. So Nanobush put the dirt on Turtle, and the dirt started to grow, and the wind blew, and the wind blew some more, and the dirt grew more. The next thing you know, now you got to remember, it was a big turtle, people. It was a big turtle. The dirt grew, and the turtle held up the land, and the land grew, and the animals were happy. They had land, and they started dancing. And as they danced, the land grew bigger and bigger and bigger. And finally, it made plenty of land for all the animals. And as you were saying, this is Turtle Island. And of course, it made all of the land that we have today, thanks to Turtle, who is honored because he died too with all that, supporting all that land. So there you go. You got the turtle and the muskrat. And today they honor the turtle and the muskrat for creating the land that we have today. And there's my tale from Nanobush. I figured if the Indians could make up tales, I could at least tell one without reading it out of a book. So there you go. And I think that's really creative. And see, now, the thing is once you start hear the tale, I told myself, could I remember it and repeat it as they would have done, back in the day? You know what I'm talking about? Like, the stories were passed down from father to son, from grandfather to, so forth. And they would sit around the fire in their, their long house or their teepee, and they would tell these stories in the winter when it was cold, and they would tell them over and over and over till they got every word right, or till they, could repeat them, that it made sense. So there you go. The story of Nanobush. And Nanobush has many stories out there. He's like, what was that other guy you were talking about earlier?
Well, actually, I was wrong. Because Glooskap was, that's who I was talking about. But he was represented by as a rabbit. And sometimes
rabbit.
it's coyote.
Yes, yeah. Well, and that's true. Sometimes there's coyote. There's
this is a real more of an entity versus an animal.
Yes, so, yes. And that's the thing. That's why I thought this was kind of a neat one, is because most of the time they are entities, like you said, like coyote turns into a man and then does things, and then turns into a back into the coyote, or a rabbit turns into a man, and then the snake. Remember the one with the snake, and it turned into a man and married the woman, and so forth and so on. And but usually they're something, and then they turn back into a human, or there's humans with, or animals with supernatural powers that can speak and talk and do things. And anyway,
represented by the great bear and his family, and who lives up high up on the mountain, on the spirit mountain, and or whatever. So, but the deities were usually at some of the creation stories were some form of animal figure,
Yeah.
usually,
Yeah.
versus one would say an invisible god. They used something that they could relate to. A giant bear and his family lived in the clouds. Well, okay, and he was the first, and you know,
Yeah. Oh yeah. But that's the thing. The tales were simple. They used figures that you wouldn't necessarily forget. They made sense. Like, hey, maybe you couldn't think of all the different names, like you were talking about the Greek gods, right? You got
right,
you got Zeus, you got Atlas, you got Neptune, you got and each one's represented by water, fire, lightning and thunder. They live in certain places, but it's kind of hard to remember them all sometimes because there's so many, and they're all represented by some kind of earth stuff, and there's different names, so many different names. Whereas when you're talking about these tales and legends, it's like, well, it's either coyote, spider, beaver, badger, deer. I mean, you can't forget those things. You know what I mean? And each one is kind of themselves in a way. Like, you read the cards every week. The deer is fleet, and the owl is about, knowledge and dreams, and beaver is this or that. You know what I'm saying? And those parts never really change too much. At least
right.
I don't think.
Beaver's teamwork.
Yeah, teamwork. There you go. So, like I said, each one, so it's easy to remember because you see that animal, and then they're doing what they're supposed to do. You know, you know what I mean?
There's a practicality to the
Yeah,
stories.
exactly. So it ain't like, oh yeah, bear was so big, and he was so tough. He just reached up into the sky and grabbed the sun. No, you can't do that. Bear can't do that. You have to have, eagle or hawk or somebody like that, or maybe hawk teamed up with the blackbird or sparrow or somebody, and eagle went up as high as he could while sparrow rode on his back, and then sparrow jumped off and did whatever kind of thing.
Right. And there's some of the stories where that there were two brothers,
Yeah.
and one brother, and and they traveled, and they went east, and one went west, and they experienced these things, and one went to meet his father in the clouds. Don't know how he got there, but but then things transpire from there, and the one brother in one of the stories went around and sort of planted seeds and created all the birds, and they because he liked to hear them sing, and
Mhm.
so he was part of the creation part of that, in that he created the birds. And who was he? He was one of the brothers,
Yeah.
from where? From the creator. He was just there, and he was part of the creation, well, there are stories in other legends and other places of the creator beings who were first on this earth, who
Hmm.
they just came and said, we think we'll make some birds. And they did. And then they were going to make some other little animals. And they did. They were the creator beings, the progenitors for the planet Earth or whatever, if you were to believe that.
Hmm.
So some of these native stories, well, there are these two brothers, and they made these things. That's not really too far off from that. There were beings who came here just to create things.
Yeah. Yeah. Could be
Call them
ancient and
gods or
Enlil.
whatever, but but they were here and created stuff for the planet. So, but anyway,
No, yeah,
yeah,
and that makes sense,
and
and
even
that's
before
why.
them, but to
Yeah.
that point, yes,
Well, like I said, when I read out of the Jesuit book, I really highly these guys. I highly disagree with them. They're thinking, oh, these people are so simple-minded. Their stories are dumb. Basically, they might as well said dumb. They're for the simple-minded. the different tribes had their stories were, the only good ones were the Iroquois. Everybody else got dumber and dumber, basically. And I definitely disagree with that. And they're not. I beg to differ. I think there's a lot to them, and they're more complicated than what you would think they are. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And also something else, some of these are these stories as told by somebody, right? Well,
Yeah.
the as told by somebody could have been a lousy storyteller, but that's how it got recorded.
Yeah. Well, and that's true. Hopefully, yeah, because we've read some stories that were like, when it didn't make a whole lot of sense, or it was kind of broken, but maybe it's two stories combined. You got to remember, a lot of these people had passed on. The Indian tribes were decimated. I can't imagine how many stories have been lost because of the decimation of the tribes. I mean,
And the stories were molested, meaning
yeah.
they were pieces of stories from this tribe to that one, and the best that that grandma could remember, and so yeah.
Well, that and I think a lot of them in the end had gotten influenced by Christianity in some way, shape, or form. Don't you think?
Yes.
And because I think they did. I think at some point they were starting to get influenced. Let's see. It's the Bible versus Inuilish shown. Yeah, exactly. Both have their points of convergence. Yeah, see, and that's Inuilish. Yeah, that's the thing. The Noah story was, the more you hear about it, was it true? Was it not true? I think it was true to a point, because I think there's been plenty of floods, all over the place. Off the Hook says, yeah, a lot of them died from smallpox or VD. A lot of them died, period. Arthur Hayes. Yes, he was Arthur Hayes. I was just listening to Matthew LaCroix today, and he was talking about that story again, how Arthur Hayes was the original Noah guy, and that's another story where it was one name and then it got changed to a different name. Why? Different language, easier to say. Maybe it wasn't so good. It was Arthur Hayes in one spot, but then they had to change it because somebody might not have agreed with it in another tribe. I don't know. Yeah, Off the Hook, that's a good one. Yeah, it just came out here like a couple days ago, and he was talking about this, the Globeki Tepe and the other Tepe one or whatever too. So anyway, well, what do you got for us tonight?
Well, also on that same line,
Mm-hmm.
the stories around the Mediterranean Ocean, and the Straits of Gibraltar are pretty narrow, considering how wide the Mediterranean Sea is. And it's reported that you could see the parts of Atlantis from the Straits of Gibraltar, which would put Atlantis just off the African coast, in the Atlantic there, about where those islands are now, sort of. The one that almost, it erupted last year and was going to fall into the ocean and kill everybody,
Yeah.
But here's the thing. So, but a story of a flood in the Mediterranean might not necessarily be the same flood in China or India or Africa or the United States or anywhere else.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because of the way the Mediterranean Ocean and that basin is, and so forth, and other things. So a lot of those stories come from the East, And I just want to mention that it might not necessarily mean the whole planet. Okay. Because last year it rained for 40 days and 40 nights, and we didn't have a flood like that.
Yeah.
Well,
and see, that's the thing. Was it a pole shift? Did the Earth move? Was there, the ice age ending? And there's a lot of things that could have happened at that point in time. Like they said, the Mediterranean Sea there, that area at one point in time might have been just a big valley, and something happened and the water came in, because they're finding buildings under there and stuff. So it's kind of like Lake Michigan. They're finding stone structures at the bottom of the lake. Well, those people didn't swim under the water there to build a stone structure back in the day. That was dry land. So what happened that made that whole lake? That's there's a lot of things to think about. So anyway, things come, things go, the world changes.
Well, I believe in the Pangea, that there was one big giant.
Could be expanding world.
There was one great big giant island, and that over the millions and maybe billions of years, the Earth has separated. It has expanded, and during these expansion times is when these catastrophic events occurred. If the Earth did one great big heave ho and expanded, water is going to be rushing everywhere. There's going to be tsunamis. It's going to be bad. That's all there is to it. And there's too many signs that the Earth has expanded. So it's just, when did it expand? When was one of those expansion times? Did it relate to any of the catastrophic events? You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Max says Harvard supports one giant worldwide hot water flood, but there were other things. Yeah, it could be. I don't know about a hot water flood. But anyway, it is a thing. I mean, they have proven that things got flooded. Why? We don't know. None of us were around. And, we just have legends and tales to, support that idea. And now we have science digging things up saying, hey, this did happen. So, was the water lower
what
back
about
in the
parts of
what? Parts of where?
What about parts out west who have seashells out in the middle of the desert?
Yeah, exactly.
The Sahara with desert, proof that says they were at the bottom of an ocean.
Yeah. Well, but then again,
so where do seashells come from?
But they also find seashells on the top of mountains too. So how did the seashell get on the top of a mountain?
Yeah.
That's
right. So then my point is that because of things like that, it's proof that the Earth went through some tremendous, not just climactic changes, but Earth changes, and stuff like that has happened and might happen again. So, all this carbon tax and nonsense is just that. But anyway.
Yeah.
So anyway, but yeah, so I think the stories relate to possible catastrophic events that happened at different parts of the world. So that's where the flooding came. That's what I personally believe. There were catastrophic events, but raining for 40 days and nights, that didn't cause it.
No, it didn't. That might have been one of the after effects of the start of the flooding, or maybe a volcano or something erupted, and that was one of the side effects from the flooding, which would make sense. Because when you start moving water around, climate starts to change. It's just like when you go, I know, like even when you go over by the lake here, you go over by the lake is warmer and it starts to get foggy. The storms roll through. that's gonna usually rains on one side of the lake more than does the other, because somehow the water gets picked up from the lake and deposited on the other side of the, because it's a
Lake
huge
effect
body.
snow.
Yeah, lake effect snow. Good observation there. Yeah. Max's salty lakes in the middle of the continent. How did a salty lake get in the middle of a continent? Unless that was a part of an ocean at one time, I guess, and that could be too. Anyway, enough of this lakes and waters and stuff. Let's hear about oh yeah, he says the salt flats. How did the salt flats get there if there was no water? Just showed up? Yeah. Dried up ocean. Anyway, alrighty. I got the story pulled up for tonight. Are you ready? Mm-hmm. There we go. I hope I got the right one. Go away. Yeah. Oh, we can get a bit bigger.
Okay, Bob.
Okay. There you go. Your computer acting up?
I can barely hear you, and things are jumping around. So I'm going to assume.
Yes, I can hear you just fine. I hope everybody else can. Chloe says he maybe froze. Oh no. Robot chop. Yeah, that could be it.
Page unresponsive.
Ah.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. I can hear you.
Okay. Well, I'll go ahead and get the story started.
Yep.
If y'all can hear me.
Yes. I can hear you. Chloe says he sounds like this. There is, again, I hope it gets better, Chloe. I think once his page loads up, I think his page is just loading up really slow because he's trying to ask the computer to do too much. That could be it. That could be it. I know my computer does that sometimes too. Is it loading?
Oh, I'm not. I've been loaded.
Oh, okay. Whenever you're ready.
I've been waiting. Every time I look, your screen's been going wacko. So I've just been sitting here waiting for for Bob to catch up for us tonight. Did we lose Robert?
No, I'm here. I'm here. You just go ahead, okay? Go ahead. It's all yours.
Okay, brother. All righty. This again is another story as we keep following along the Seneca. And this is a story called The Buffalo Women, told by Titus. The characters are the little people, fairies, Dezogdion, the ancient of bears, Naguahia, the false face. We've heard about these folks before, the wind people, Shagadawiga Gawa, and Buffalo, Gawa. A boy and his mother lived near the Allegheny River at a place called Caradon. One foggy morning, just at daylight, the boy went to the river. He heard rowing and soon saw two little people, Dizagargon, coming in a stone canoe. They came to near where he was standing and landed. One of them said to him, "We have come on purpose to talk with you, for you are up early mornings. We are on a buffalo hunt. There are 3 buffaloes, 2 old ones and a young one that ran underground. If they stop in this part of the country, they will destroy all the people, for they are full of witchcraft and poison. A great many years ago, your grandfather chased these buffaloes, but he could not overtake them. 2 days from now, come to this place early in the morning and we will tell you about our hunt." When the time came, the boy went to the river, and soon the 2 little men came to him and said, "We have killed the 2 old buffaloes. The young one escaped, ran off toward the west. We let him go, for only a common man can kill him. Now we are going home." The little men got into their stone canoe, rowed away, and were never seen again. Sometime after that, the Senecas collected a war party to go against the Cherokees. One of the party was the best runner of the Senecas. Before the party reached the Cherokee country, they met the Cherokees, and every Seneca was killed except the fast runner. He escaped from the enemy, got out of reach, and started home on a different trail from the one uh, different from the trail the one the party had taken when coming. The third day, near noon, he came to a deer lick and sat down to rest. As he sat there, he saw tracks that looked like the tracks of a very large bear. He got up and followed them till they stopped at a tall elm tree. Then he saw that they were not the tracks of an ordinary bear, but one of the old kind, the great bear, the Nagawahi. And he thought, "No matter if I die, I will see this creature." The tree was hollow. The man climbed up and, looking into the hole, saw the bear. It had no hair and its skin was as smooth as a man's. The Seneca thought, "I mustn't bother this creature. I'll go back to the deer lick." He hurried down the tree and ran off as fast as he could. As he ran, he heard a terrible noise and, looking around, saw that the animal had come out of the hole and was following him. Going back some distance, he ran forward and sprang into the deer lick, sinking almost to his waist in the mud. He couldn't get out of the lick and could only, with great difficulty, take a step forward, dragging one foot after the other. When the bear came to the lick, it sprang at the man and sank in the mud. It worked its way to the middle of the lick and there sank out of sight. When the man reached solid ground, he ran till he came to a fallen tree. Then he sat down and began to think. He didn't know what to do. He had nothing to eat, and he was too tired to hunt. Soon a stranger came to him and said, "You think that you are going to die?" "I do," he said. "You will not. I have come to save you. Go to where I just came from Off in that direction, he said, pointing to one side, you will find a fire and over it a kettle of meat. Rest and eat. Men will come and bother you, but pay no attention to them. When you sit down to eat, one will say, throw a piece over this way. Another will say, throw a piece over this way. But pay no heed to them. If you throw even one morsel, you are lost. They will kill you. The man went as directed and found a kettle of meat and hulled corn. As he ate, it seemed as though a crowd formed in a circle around him. Each man of the crowd began to beg for a piece of meat. They begged all night, but he paid no attention to their begging. In the morning, after the Seneca had traveled a short distance, he met the stranger who sent him to the kettle. The stranger said, I am glad that you did as I told you. Go toward the east, and when it is near night, sit down by a tree. I will come to you. The man traveled all day. Near sunset, he found a fallen tree and sat down. Soon the stranger came. He said, follow my tracks back till you come to a fire. Over the fire is a kettle full of meat and hulled corn. You will be tormented as you were last night, but pay no heed to the begging. If you escape tonight, you will have no more trouble. The Seneca went as directed. He found a fire, and hanging over it, over the fire, was a kettle. The kettle was full of meat and hulled corn. That night, the men begged for meat as the night before, but the Seneca paid no attention to them. The next morning, the stranger came to him and said, if you keep on your way, you will reach home safe and well. As he started along, the Seneca turned to look at his friend and saw, instead of a man, a shagdagoa, a great bear. Towards night, he got hungry and thought he had better look for game. He saw a deer, killed it with an arrow, and building a fire, he roasted pieces of the meat and ate them. He was now strong and well. The next afternoon, he shot a deer, built a fire, roasted pieces of meat, and ate them. When night came, he lay down by the fire, but he couldn't sleep. After a while, two women came to his fire, and one of them asked, are you awake? I am awake. I want you to marry my daughter, said the woman. The man saw that the girl was good looking, and he consented to marry her. He didn't know where to go and thought if he married, he would have company, and after a time might find his way home. The next morning, the mother said, we will go home. The three walked on until midday. Then they came to a village where it seemed to the young man a good number of people were living. They stopped at one of the cabins. The mother-in-law said to him, this is our home. You will stay with us. The young man stayed a long time with his wife's parents. One night he heard the beating of a drum and heard his father-in-law say, hey, hey. The old man seemed frightened by the call. The call meant that the chief of the village, the young buffalo that escaped from the Desergon, the little people, and now lived under a hill close by, was to have a dance, and that all the people of the village must come to it. The next morning, everyone went to the place where the drum was beaten, and dancing began. The crowd danced all day and all night. Young Buffalo and his two wives came out and danced. In the morning, they went around among the crowd. Buffalo was very jealous. He pushed men away from his wives and wanted to fight. Then he went under the hill, and his wives followed him. The next day, the old man said to his son in law, Buffalo's wives will soon come out and go to the river for water. They will pass near you, but you must not speak or smile. Their husband is a bad man. If you speak or smile, he will know it and harm you. The young man didn't heed his father in law's words. The two women went to the river for water. As they came back, they smiled and looked pleasant, and the young man asked them for a drink. They gave it to him and went on. The old man said, You didn't do as I told you to. Now the chief will come out and say that he is going to challenge a man to a foot race. He will name you. Soon, young Buffalo came and, pointing at the Seneca, said, I challenge this stranger to run a race with me. If I am a better runner than he is, I will take his life. If he is a better than I am, he may take mine. We will begin early tomorrow morning and run around and around the hill. The one who is ahead at sundown will be the winner. The old man said to his son in law, You must have an extra pair of moccasins to put on when yours wears out. The next morning, young Buffalo came and said, Now we will start. And off he went. At midday, the young man's friends called to him to do his best, for the chief was gaining on him, that he had just gone around the turn ahead. Soon he heard the chief's friends tell him to do his best, for the young man was gaining on him. Buffalo got tired, went crooked, and soon the young man overtook him. He didn't know how he was going to kill Buffalo, for his side was one immense rib. These buffaloes were not like the buffaloes of today. He shot from behind. The arrow went in up to the feathers. Only a bit of it stuck out. The two ran around once more. As they came near the stopping place, the crowd called to the young man to shoot again. He did, and killed the buffalo. So the words of the Dizogun were true. A common man killed young Buffalo. The people crowded around the Seneca and thanked him for what he had done. His father-in-law said to the crowd, Now each man is free to go where he wants to. The old man and his wife with their daughters and son-in-law went home. Then the mother-in-law said to the young man, Get ready. You must visit your mother. Soon after, the young man and his wife and her mother started. They were 10 days on the road. It was spring, the time of sugar making. When they were near his mother's house, his mother-in-law said, My daughter and I will stop in this swamp. Your mother is making sugar. We will stay here, but we will help her all we can. The young man saw his mother at night and went to the house, leaving the two women in the swamp. In the night, the wife and mother collected all the sap and gathered a great quantity of wood. The next morning, when the mother and son went to the woods, they found no sap in the troughs under the trees. But when they came to the boiling place, they found the big trough full and a great pile of wood close nearby. This work went on for some days. Then the woman said to her son-in-law, It is time for me to go back to my husband. You are free now. Have no hard feelings. I shall take my daughter with me. You must stay with your mother. There are many girls who want to marry you, but the girl you must marry is the granddaughter of the woman who lives in the house at the edge of the village. They are poor, and the girl takes care of her grandmother. As you leave us, call out. When someone asks why you call, tell them that you have found buffalo tracks in the swamp. Let them come and shoot us. We will get home sooner. They parted, the wife and mother in law going one way, the young man the other. As he went, he called out. When men asked why he called, he said, I've found buffalo tracks near the end of the swamp. Hunters went out and soon overtook the buffaloes and shot them. When the buffaloes fell, the hunters thought they had killed them, that they were dead, but they were not. When they were shot, their loads dropped off, and right away they were back at their old home. They left their bodies behind, and people ate them, but their spirits went back to the old man and were buffaloes again. The young man had been gone so long that the Senecas thought him a great man. Women wanted him for their daughters, but he refused every offer and married the granddaughter of the old woman who lived at the edge of the village. The end. Now, second story for tonight is called The Ghost Woman. It's a short story, but an interesting one. The Ghost Woman.
Yes, it was. The Ghost Woman.
You ready for me to do the next
That was
one?
interesting. Yeah.
Tell me when.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okie doke. The Ghost Woman. In a Seneca village, there was a young man who was an orphan. He had neither home nor relatives. He lived first with one family and then with another. One fall, when the men were getting ready to go deer hunting, the young man asked if he could go. The hunters didn't want him, and he was left alone. Then he said, I'll go by myself, and he started. Towards night, he came to an opening in the woods and saw a brush house over by the bushes. He went to the house, looked in. There was no one there. The young man thought that the other hunters had built the house and spent a night there. He went in, kindled a fire, made a place to sleep on, and lay down. About midnight, he heard someone come in, and opening his eyes, he saw a woman. She looked at him but didn't speak. Then she moved towards his couch and stopped again. At last she said, I have come to help you. You must not be afraid. I will stay all night in the cabin. He said, if you will help me, you may stay. I have passed through this world, said the woman. I know that you are poor, that you have no relatives and are alone. The hunters didn't want you to go with them. This is why I came to help you. Tomorrow, start early and travel till it is time to camp. Then I will be there. Towards daylight, the woman left the cabin. In the morning, the young man started on. Towards dark, when he thought it was time to stop, he looked for a spring, found one, and had just finished his camp when night came. In the night, the woman came as before. The next day, the man had good luck. He killed every kind of game. The woman stayed with him till the hunting season was over. No hunter in the woods had killed as much game as he had. When he was ready to go home, the woman said, I will go with you to the first camp you made. They spent the night at that camping place. The next morning, she said, I will stay here. When you get home, everybody will find out that you have brought all kinds of meat and skins. One and another will come to you and say, You must marry my daughter. An old woman will say, You must marry my granddaughter. Don't listen to them. Come back next year and you will have good luck. When you are getting ready, if a man wants to come with you, don't let him come alone. We will meet here. They parted, and the young man continued his journey, carrying on his back a heavy load of game. In the village, he found some of the hunters. Others came soon after. All boasted of the game they had killed. The young man said, I will give each man as much meat as he wants if he will go to my camp and get it. Many went and brought back all the meat they could carry. Still, there was meat left. Every woman who had a daughter or a granddaughter asked the young man to come and live with them. At last, the chief asked him to marry his daughter. The man was afraid that if he refused, harm would come to him, for the chief was a powerful person. He consented and married the chief's daughter. When hunting season came, a great many men and the chief thought his son-in-law was the best hunter in the tribe, wanted to go hunting with him. But he said, I'm not going this year. The hunters started off one after another. When all had gone, the young man went alone to the camp where he was to meet the woman. Early in the night, she came in, stopped by the door, and said, I am sorry you didn't do as I told you to. Now I cannot stay with you, and she disappeared. Day after day the man hunted, but he saw no large game. He shot small game, squirrels and birds, for he was hungry. He went back to the village and had to tell the people that he had seen no game. The woman was a ghost woman. The end.
Very good. Very good. Ah, ghost woman. See,
Ghost woman.
This is the thing. These guys do the same thing over and over and over again. And they don't learn. They just don't learn. They get there and all they have to do is follow direction. And they can't do it. Why is that?
Well, because the chief's daughter, but it was the chief's daughter,
Daughter, yeah, got to do what he said. No, how can you say no to the chief? He was afraid. That's see, this is the message inside the story. And you see this plenty of times. Somebody's afraid. They're afraid to say no. They're afraid not to do something. And that gets them in a lot of trouble. They're afraid. Remember the one with the horse or something? And he says, all you got to do is just do this. And he couldn't do that, You just have to say no. You just have to not feed the men around the fire, when they ask for meat. See, now that guy followed direction. Don't feed the people. They may ask, feed me the meat. No, just don't do it. And, he had good luck. This one says, don't marry the chief's daughter, a daughter, period. And he
Don't
did.
marry, period. It was
Period.
not marry. But here was this young man who'd been alone and didn't have anybody, and so now, you know, he did one of the things that I read it previously, and then again, and it was like, so no credence is given. He didn't like thank her, you know, I'll be back next year, and she didn't really stress to him, you know, if you want to have good luck next year, if you want to have a good season, you will do as I say. It's a little, he was like, he was so happy to have gotten all that game. He was high in the head kind of thing, and
Yep.
boastful probably when he got back to camp. And I was, you know, married to, you know, the chief's daughter might have been a really good looker. And he thought, you know, I can get away with this, you know.
Yeah.
And he didn't.
Well, what if I just do half of what she said, right? Like, I'll marry the chief's daughter
Right.
and I'll go there by myself and maybe it'll still all work out. No, you got to follow the direction, you know.
Yep.
Follow the direction.
Yeah, you two-timing, you know, Indian boy, you.
Yeah,
But
follow
anyway.
directions. I mean, it you know, it still just boils down to the same thing. You know, follow directions, do what they say. You know, the spirits are there to guide you, and you're gonna screw it up because you can't listen. You don't listen. You can't say no. You're too afraid. And that's the thing. And how many of us are afraid? I don't want to do that. I'm afraid. I'm afraid to, you know, afraid of what? What are you afraid of? Come on. You afraid to say no? Afraid to tell somebody how you feel? Are you afraid to try something new? I mean, do you doubt yourself? You're a powerful being trapped in this meat suit body. You know, you got the power of the voice. Say no, you know, and that's pretty much it. I mean, yes or no. Most people don't even say yes. They just, you know, sure, you know, whatever. And you know, they're not.
And creator will.
Yeah.
Creator will throw all kinds of thing at us too, you know, to where we got to say no, or we'll really be in hot water, or have done something really stupid. And too many times in my lifetime, I didn't say no. I know, so I know about this. But you know, and it's not necessarily the courage to say no. It's just you don't have you go, well, why not? Okay,
Yeah.
you know, why not?
Yeah, you kind of give
it
that.
was like, wait a minute, you should have thought about it.
Yeah, I've done that too, where you think about it afterwards and you think, oh, what did I get myself into? Can't go back and say no now. You know, and you're regretting your decision.
And I only used my brain beforehand.
Yeah.
Yep.
And Chloe said it best here. And you get pooped on when you don't say no. That is so true. That is so true. Because that's the thing. Your gut is telling you. It's yelling at you at the highest, you know, hey, listen to me. You know, don't do that. It's not going to be well. It's not turning out well. You shouldn't go. Shouldn't say yes. Don't say no. Tell them no. And you're going, I think I hear that voice in my head saying no, but I'm going to say yes anyway. What could it be? Couldn't hurt. Could it? Nah, sure. Why not? Oh, I really regret that decision. You know, oh, you've been there. I've been there. I think we all been there at one point in time. But do we learn? Do we really learn from that? Sometimes I think people don't learn from that. You know, don't eat the pizza. It's hot. Ow, it burnt my mouth. My tongue hurt for days. You know, why did I do that? I'm old enough to know better. Why? Sometimes we do learn. Susie Q's right. I think sometimes you do learn. Yes. And that's the thing. Experiences make knowledge, and knowledge makes a wise person. Yeah. Learning the hard way. Yeah. How many of us have learned the hard way?
Unless you keep repeating the same mistake.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Same mistake.
If you can do the same thing and learn along the way, but if you keep making the same damn mistakes, then you ain't learned nothing. You just keep fluttering around in this world.
Well,
Well, I
and
should have learned. I should have told them no, and then next week they call you, and you end up going. You guys should have said no, and so I didn't want to hurt their feelings. Did you learn anything? No, because you keep doing it.
well,
You keep repeating it.
How do you become wise? You only become wise after you've experienced lots of things. You just can't be wise. You can be a wise ass, I guess, but you can't be wise unless you've had experiences to understand the meaning of a lot of different things. I mean, and it could be something simple, and it could be as something as watching something else happen. Observation of other things can make you wise also. You don't always have to have a catastrophe to become wise. Is that true?
Oh yeah, I would agree with that.
Because
but the thing about wisdom, though, I've seen too many, not always women, but there are some men who get coerced into it. Mama's going to the store and she wants you to go along with her. Well, no, I'd rather stay home and watch a football game. Well, but you can't disappoint me and you can't upset my mother. So you end up going to the store. So next Sunday you say, I'm gonna stay home and watch football, Mama, she wants you to go to the store with her again. And what do you do? Well, I've learned my lesson last year or last month or last week, and I said I wasn't going to do it. And then but you give in again. So where is your wisdom in this? Because you keep repeating it, you know. So, but I've learned my lesson, and then next week rolls around, or next season rolls around, and you're right back in the same thing. So you haven't learned nothing, really.
Well, you know what what it tells you is that you can't say no. And there's a lot of people. I mean, there's a lot of people out there. I've been one of those people. Can't say no. And I tell myself, I'm not going to do that again. Not going to do it again. And sure enough, I do it again. And, I can't stand my ground. Chloe says that, stand your ground. Yes. You got that soft spot. Like, yeah, why not? I should, like you said, they call again. I want to watch football. Please. And you're thinking, great. I don't want to hurt
all week long. I've put in a lot of hours. I'm tired. I just want to throw my feet up, and you end up going to do something that you don't, And so, sometimes people might say, well, you're a wuss. Well, maybe. But here's the thing, there's that soft spot, and we don't want to hurt other people's feelings, and we'd rather be inconvenienced ourselves. But here's the thing, did you learn anything from where is the wisdom in this repeating the same thing, is my point to this. And you can say, well, my wisdom comes in that I have went with this person when I would have rather been at home resting, and I sacrificed my time to help this other person, and that maybe somewhere along the line it works out. So you compromise your situation by convincing yourself you're doing the right thing, which maybe you are, and hopefully you are. Otherwise, you missed a good football game. But
well, see, I think that's what makes a wise. That's why there's people who go to wise people, because they can't say no. They keep running into these problems. They keep doing the same thing over and over. And the wise person will get there and say something like, well, by helping that other person and going there, did your life better? Or by watching the football game, did you learn anything from that? What can you gain from watching a football game? Yeah, and then they'll give you some weird answer, and then you have to think about it because they're not going to tell you, yeah, stay home, say no, and enjoy your football game. Yeah, idiot. Don't be going if you don't want to go. They give you some wise saying like, does a bird chirp in the woods if you don't go out to see it? Now go home and think about that. And there's your answer. You know what I'm saying? That's because there the answer is always within you. That's the point. You have to think about it. You have to make the decision. And you still might keep saying yes.
Well, and sometimes it's like there will people who will make you feel bad because you don't say yes. And watch your stupid football game. When it's not so much about the football game, it's about something that you enjoy. You're tired, you want to just throw your feet up, and the football game is the excuse. What you really want is just a little time to put your feet. You don't want to go do something else. You want to rest. You want to relax. And so, but the football game then becomes the topic of discussion. Well, you're all you want to do is watch your stupid football, and you don't want to go and help my mother-in-law or blah blah blah, whatever the thing is. And you, okay, I'll go, and you give in. Or you're the rude son of a gun and go, screw you, I'm staying home and watching a football game. Go, it works both ways. But to me, there's no right answer. You try to please them and you go, and it turns into a chaos. You try to just say, look, I'm tired, I want to stay home, and you want to explain it, why you want to stay home. It's not about the football game, and you still get put on the grill. So sometimes you just can't win.
Off the Hook says, I'm allergic to football. I agree with you. I never was into that football game stuff. I remember when I was a kid, my dad would turn that football game on, and I was so mad because I was like, is there anything? I know there's a good show on another. Can't we watch something else? Go outside and play or watch the football game. So I'd go outside and play. It's a good thing we had horses. I entertained myself. Go watch your football game. I'm going to, but most of the time it was in the fall, and Dad would get up in the morning and grab us kids, or most of the time I was old enough by this point. Let's go cut a load of firewood. So we'd go out there and we'd go into the woods and we'd cut a load of firewood, and he would stack that. I would throw all the wood onto the trailer, and he would come and he would restack it onto the trailer. And he'd say, see, half empty. And I would fill that empty spot up with wood. And then he would come and he would restack it again. He'd say, it's still half empty. And we would restack it again. Till finally you'd stand on the tire and you'd be putting the pieces of wood way up there. And then he would say, I guess it's good enough. Then we would get home and he would look at me and he'd say, the football game's on. Well, you're not watching it, so you can unload the trailer. Carry it all down in the basement. And for the next 2 or 3 hours, I would carry wood down to the basement. Boy, did I hate that. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's my life.
But you didn't have to watch the dumb football game.
I didn't, but that was a lot of wood. Like I said, that was a lot of wood. And it would get taller and taller and taller. And he would it was a never-ending hole, You'd fill that tractor up, that wagon behind the tractor, it was as high as it would go. And yeah. There you go. But I learned how to stack wood really good. Put it that way. Okay. Anyway, enough of my tall tale. Did you pull a card? We got a card?
Moose.
Moose.
The moose is loose.
Holy mackerel.
Moose is loose.
Okay.
Moose, help me to honor the gifts I can give and recognize my worthiness as long as I live. Moose is self-esteem, and it's right side up. Moose is found in the north of the medicine wheel, as is buffalo. North represents the place of wisdom. Guess what we were just talking about? Wisdom.
Yeah.
Self-esteem is the medicine of moose because it represents the power of recognizing that wisdom has been used in a situation and that recognition or a pat on the back is deserved. Moose is the largest member of the deer family and has great strength. The call of the male moose is an awesome thing to hear on a musky spring night. His pride in his maleness and his desire to share his seed with the moose cow are displays of the sense of self-esteem. The bellow of a male moose can be viewed as a positive force, since it represents his willingness to tell the world about his feelings. This tell the world trait contains a joyfulness which only comes with a sense of accomplishment. There is no greater joy than a job well done. This trait is therefore not a seeking of approval, but rather an enjoyment of sharing because of the spontaneous explosion of joy that comes from the deepest part of one's being. The wisdom woven throughout this scenario is that creation constantly brings forth new ideas, which means further creation. Moose is telling us that joy should be shouted with pride. The wisdom in doing this shouting is that the joy is catching. In a sense, the bellowing is a way for all of us to lighten up and give ourselves or each other a well done. Moose medicine people have the ability to know when to use the gentleness of deer and when to activate the stampede of buffalo. They understand the balance between giving orders to get things done and having the willingness to do things themselves. The wisdom of moose medicine is akin to the grandfather warrior who has long since put away his war paint and is now advising the young bucks to cool their blood. Moose medicine is often found in elders who have walked the good red road and have seen many things in their earth walk. Their joy lies in being the teachers of the children and in being the first ones to give encouragement. This is not to say that moose medicine people do not use their wisdom to warn as well as to give praise, because they do. Moose medicine people know what to say, when to say it, and to whom. Elders are honored in tribal law for their gifts of wisdom, for their teaching abilities, and for their calmness they impart in the council. If you are wise beyond your years and have the gift of moose medicine, use this gift to encourage others to learn and to grow. There are many facets to wisdom of moose medicine. If you've chosen the moose card, You have reason to feel good about something that you have accomplished on your journey. This may be a habit you have broken, uh, a, a, a completion of some sort of task, or an insight on a goal, or a new sense of self that you have fought hard to earn. It is a time of feeling harmonious pride and of recognizing those who aided you in the process. One good exercise in moose medicine is to write down things that you can love about yourself and your progress in life. Then apply these same things to friends, family, and co-workers and life. Don't forget to share the findings with others. They need the encouragement as much as you do. Self-esteem, and it doesn't mean going around tooting in your own horn either. It means recognizing it. The joy is in being the teachers and the children and in being the first ones to give encouragement. So, Moose, the card for the week. So, gain wisdom, as we were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And chase down a moose.
That's right. Well, he says this one's for Amber. Here you go. Good deal. Anyway. Yes, wisdom and all of that good stuff. Being brave, it's good. I love moose. Moose is cool. I've seen a moose a couple of times. There was one standing out there in the middle of winter one day. I took a picture of it. It was cool. Seen one while I was working one day. I was walking in the back and I was like, holy cow, there's a moose. It's huge. I thought it was a horse. Yeah, I've seen a few of them out here.
That's not one animal I've not seen is a moose.
Oh,
I've
really?
seen elk. I've seen other kind of animals, but I've not seen a moose in the wild.
They're big. Put it that way. Like a horse with horns. Yes.
I've seen elk and have been really close to elk, and they are huge.
Yeah.
But not elk.
I've seen that last year. I got some pictures of the elk crossing the road. That was pretty cool too. They're big. Put it that way. They're big. Mm-hmm. Yes, they are. And moose are even bigger. Yeah. So it is what it is. But anyway, wow. Early night. That's all right because I got to get up early in the morning and go to work. And then I get to have Thursday, Friday, and Saturday off. Thank goodness.
That'll be good for you.
Been a long week. A long week. Seems like about the time the week gets going and I'm getting really tired, there's a day off. And I need it. But anyhow, thank you for everybody for coming. Susie Q, off the hook. She says she don't get many people to talk to her. Well, you're always welcome here. If you ever decide you want to come on, you can talk to all of us. We'll gladly have you on. And Chloe is here. Thank you. Amber Dawn was in the house. I hope she's still here. Michelle Can-Am Free. Max Vision was in the house tonight too. Deborah L. Smith. And I don't know anybody else. I didn't see a few people here tonight, but anyway, I hope everybody's listening, or I'll catch this on the flip flop. But I appreciate each and every one of you. David, I think we're doing really good. Next week, 98 coming right up. Right. There's Deborah. Deborah's
cheers,
still here.
Everybody. We thank you so much. And we always pray that you're doing well and that every day is a day to learn. And keep up the good work, everybody. Thank you for coming.
Do you have a show after this? You have a show after this? David, you got a show after this?
Maybe. I'm feeling kind of tired, and I did 3.5 hours this afternoon. And so maybe.
Maybe. Okay. Well, with that, remember, everybody, I got a special show on Thursday night with Trina.
Did you hear me?
Yes. Yes, I did. Yes. Anyway, I got a show Thursday night with Trina, and join me on Saturday for Trinity the Truth night, or Saturday, our big show. But, well, anyway, with that said, remember, people, go out, do something nice. Do something nice for yourself. Give somebody a smile or a big hug when they really need it. Because there are people out there who really need it. There might be people in your backyard. It might be somebody in the Soul Tribe. So give them a shout out. Anyway, with that said, remember, go out and be the frequency you want to receive. I love you all, people. Peace, everybody.